So, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the 25th of June, 2018. And without further ado, we go with our welcome. Dear colleagues, may we have the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can change, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, call to order, confirmation of quorum. Everybody is here. Thank you. So now we continue with the conflicts of interests. Are there any declarations of conflicts of interest? None. We continue with the adoption of the agenda. But before going to the adoption of the agenda, we're going to be striking point 10.2.1, and in its place we put instead 10.1.2. The topic of 10.1.2 is the signing authority of a contribution agreement to the intergenerational community complex. So, in order to add the item, okay, striking it, it's simple, but we need I don't think we need a vote for that. But on the other hand, to add another item, we need a resolution moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. No questions? All those in favor, signify of the adding of item 10.1.2, signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. So it is carried unanimously, and it'll be put in added to the agenda. Now, presentations, petitions, inquiries. Inquiries by council members to Kodiak Regional RCMP. I don't know if something has to be mentioned. Mr. Godet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I would like to wish a welcome to Corporal Martin Basque, proud citizen of Dieppe, who is here to represent the RCMP tonight. Welcome, Monsieur Basque. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to mention, Corporal, that we have a citizen in the hall here who has mentioned a problem on his street that involves the RCMP. I would like you to maybe sit with that person for a couple of minutes and get to know what the story is. He's received calls and comments from the RCMP that concerns him, first of all. One of the comments is that concerning his problem in that zone, twice an officer has suggested he move. That is not a way to do things to a citizen in a house and who lives here. And secondly, the citizen was asked by the RCMP to keep them informed of all activities or all problems that would occur, which is what he did. And lately he received a call from an officer saying that maybe he should lay off just a little bit. So that's kind of confusing. Now, if I were a citizen, I would be very frustrated with this type of thing. So I'd like you to maybe meet with him before you leave tonight, and maybe send a message along to the superintendent. Thank you very much. I think that the conversation with the citizen is important, but it should be also be brought to Superintendent Crickshaw, who is well aware of the specific story. He's already had an important discussion with the citizen in question, but I think it's important for the message to be passed on. Yes, I will do that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Anything else? Other comments from members of council? So If not, then Monsieur Bass, do you have something to mention? No, I was just told that the statistics will not be available because they've changed the software. There will be a problem, but the statistics are still on the website of the Regional Kodiak Authority. Okay, if there's nothing else for 7.1 presentation, we go to item 8. Listen, you're very welcome to meet the citizen in question, and then if you choose to stay with us, it's a good thing. If you decide to leave, we will not feel insulted. I will be staying. Thank you. So, item 8, questions by members of the public. Monsieur Godet is coming forward. Monsieur Godet, good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of the staff. First of all, let me salute and congratulate your new councillor, Madame Le Boutillier. I'm sure that, how would I say this? She's going to have a lot of work, and I wish her wisdom. I would also like, Mr. Mayor, thank the municipal environment that maintains the flag at the Acadian Monument and that renovated completely the platform. It is very appreciated by the International Commission on the Odyssey and the SNA. It's very much appreciated by people who continuously stop to read the plaques and to get informed, get the information on this monument. Last fall, I had suggested something that seemed to be interesting, and I would just like to ask you, when the pedestrian crosswalks in Dieppe, some of them at least, when will they be painted in the colors of the Acadian flag? Thank you. Last year we did it, and I believe I'm going to be asking Monsieur Melanson to give us an update, because the discussions over the last month, a little bit everywhere in the community, actually in the province. Yeah, that's for the week of Pride Week, but for the pedestrian, for the Acadie celebration, yes, it would be natural, it would be normal that in Dieppe there would be some signs of our Acadian status. According to me and according to many people, it would be reasonable that we paint the pedestrian crosswalks, because there's no specific direction from the province. Basically, it gives us the flexibility or the permission to do something like that. So, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Godet, what we're looking at now, I believe that we have to look at this a little broadly and to kind of manage the expectations. Twice, there was the mayor's forum of the Southeast region. We were studying the development of a policy municipally, how to manage these types of requests. And the prestige of a flag, how would we be able to use it on this type of setting? Crosswalk, putting the Acadian flag on a crosswalk, would that be painted? Would that be proper? So we have to find out what the use is for the official flags. So what can we do with a crosswalk? So we need a structure. So we recognize that it's something that can bring about pride, but we also recognize that if we have these visuals on the lampposts or the entrance of the city, and we also have to work with the Congrès Mondial Acadien, which will be in 2019. So there are discussions going on. How do we express this pride, actually, for the Southeast region and the PEI? So I guess I went a little farther than what your question involved. So we're going to we're working on a policy to make sure that what we do is going to be respectful. A flag is an important thing, so we have to think about it. I recognize your way of doing things, and through the length of your answer. Well, maybe it was, but it was just for sure shorter than some other answers. But I think that the Acadian Federation of the Families would be very interested in seeing the Acadian flag. And if I wanted to be a little naughty, I would say if you paint the signs or the crosswalks in the colors that you mentioned, it would be a lack of respect if everybody's going to be walking on it. There are flags that are recognized federally, and that has to be considered because each flag has to be lit up in nighttime. So all the suggestions are very good. We have to do things cautiously. We want to see more manifestations of the Acadian status in Dieppe. Yes, thank you very much. We're happy to hear you. Anybody else? Monsieur McBurney, good evening.
Mayor, I will have to correct you on the conversation that I had with Mr. Crickshaw. I absolutely have no idea who he is. So I'm not quite certain why you feel that I had a conversation with Mr. Crickshaw.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I guess it was Inspector Breton.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay,
so I just wanted to correct you on that.
Thank you.
Basically, this evening, my name is Michael McBurney. I am located in Dieppe, 366 Bayview Court, as you all well know. Basically, I want to ask anybody on council tonight, who creates the bylaws within this city? Mm-hmm. Who's responsible for creating the bylaws within the city?
Council.
Okay. Who do the bylaws apply to within the city of Dieppe? Does it apply to all citizens?
Of course.
Okay. So then, if a citizen has been served by the city of Dieppe, by law enforcement, to cease and desist burning, and yet, just this Friday past, there was a 911 call response to the property in question due to smoke. What are the repercussions to this individual for breaching this 2-year no ban burning? What are the repercussions that bylaw is going to enforce on this individual?
I will have to direct the answer to our secretary.
Yes, Mr. McBurney. What we did with your neighbor is that we stop him, or he cannot have a permit for a period of 2 years. He cannot burn for 2 years. It doesn't mean that the problem is not that he can burn things. The problem with us is that he cannot have a fire pit and he cannot use it.
With all due respect, Monsieur Samad, and I have the utmost respect for you, there's not one person in this room that can tell me that he has ever applied for a permit for any of the buildings that were erected on his property. There was ever a permit applied to burn in the first place. Any construction permits. I applied. I actually emailed the city planner, and I had inquired about the rules and regulations and the permits that I would have to obtain in order to erect a temporary greenhouse on my 2-acre property. And I don't know if you guys are aware of the criteria that an individual has to go through in order to do that. There's site plans, there's measurements, there's everything. Now, I'm the good guy. I want to apply for my permit. I want to do it right. But yet we've got a citizen in our city that I've lived with and have tolerated. And again, we called 911 under the advice of the city of Dieppe that if we see smoke coming from that property, we're to call 911. And then on Saturday evening, one day after the event, my father-in-law gets a call from the RCMP questioning that there was no fire and that we need to stop picking on this neighbor. Now, we all know that he kicked in my door. We all know that my husband and I have put our adoption process on hold due to the stress from this situation. We all know that he has no regard for any authority whatsoever. When the RCMP have to handcuff him and place him against his vehicle for 45 minutes while the fire officials go in and do a warranted inspection, that's not right. And we're tired. Mm-hmm. We're tired now. We're now wondering, do we see this through? We've been drug in and out of court now for the last 5 months. The date keeps getting pushed back. In fact, I just learned that the RCMP were called to this very building to escort this individual out due to his volatility and his irrationality. Mm-hmm. How can the city allow that? And I know that you guys only have so much power. Why isn't the RCMP in collaboration with the city of Dieppe to stop individuals like this? What does he have on the RCMP, or what does he have on the city of Dieppe that this man can continually breach and break bylaws and disregard authority, disregard warranted inspections, while all the rest of us within the city, and you guys have seen my posts on Facebook, and I'm almost embarrassed to be posting things like this, but when I spend from 6 a.m. until 5 o'clock at night beautifying the homes throughout the city of Dieppe, which is my profession, and I get a client whose husband is in the military and they get posted to Quebec, and she's listed her house to sell it, and by law enforcement has placed a memo on her door that she has to have her grass cut by a certain date because it exceeds the 20-centimeter height restriction for grass. But yet, we've lived beside this for 5 years. And I can tell you right now, his grass is probably 14 inches high. And I get it. I know the procedures that you guys have been through. We have been diplomatic. We have been cordial. We have tried to be as cooperative as possible. But this has gone beyond, and I've said it before, it's gone beyond burning an unsightly premises. It's now affected our life. It's affected our livelihood, mentally, physically, emotionally. The stress that it's put on our marriage, the stress that it's put on my in-laws that live directly across the street on the other side of this property, that's been allowed to be maintained this way for the last 5 years. You've all had an invitation to my property.
And many, as far as I know that all the members of council are very much aware of the situation and very conscious of the frustrations. I can tell you that when it comes to municipal bylaws, it's probably a lot more difficult to get them enforced than your typical Highway Act or certainly criminal code.
Monsieur Lapierre,
you will allow me to finish, I'm sure, my statement as I've allowed you to speak. We understand your frustration. We're doing everything that we can. We have staff fully engaged into the issue. We would like to see it resolved months ago. Unfortunately, we don't control completely that process. The areas that we control, we are doing everything we can. And I sympathize with your situation, and I know that doesn't do a heck of a lot for you, but we're doing everything that we can. I'm as you are offended by the statements that have been reported, have been made to you by members of the RCMP, and I'm sure that those actions will be dealt with within the RCMP. But from our end, and you've said it yourself, we have one of our key person involved in this file with Mr. Simard, and we continue to work that file and trying to get it resolved as much as we can. I'm sure you're familiar with the statement that the law is an ass. I'm sure that's not the first time. If it's the first time you've heard it, now you have proof that sometimes the law is an ass. And we're doing all we can. I can assure you of that. I'm now more able to speak on the matter.
And I respect that. I respect the fact that there was a conflict of interest. Mm-hmm. But when you yourself, in an email, have appointed Patricia Arsenault mm-hmm. and Daniel Alain as my liaison, mm-hmm. my go-to person, and I received one email mm-hmm. in almost 2 years from this gentleman, one email, and that's it. So how do I communicate with council if my mayor, due to a conflict of interest, can't communicate? So then I turned to Monsieur Simard, who was cordial enough to invite my husband and I upstairs one night for a meeting. Mm-hmm. And it was from that day on that I dealt with him and only him. That's not fair to me as a citizen of this city mm-hmm. and a taxpayer to ask my mayor, who's my liaison? I understand you couldn't participate. Mm-hmm. I had no problem with that. And somewhere along the line, due to lack of communication, Monsieur Lapierre, you and I made a public apology on the way that I spoke to you when you addressed me one evening at council. That wasn't fair to me, mm-hmm. And like I say, Monsieur Alain, I had one conversation with him throughout this whole process, and you appointed him as my go-to person because I didn't know where to go. I didn't know how to start this process.
Well, I think that right now the process is where it should be with our key advisor when it comes to...
after 5 years of my time trying to go through the proper channels, trying to work with the RCMP, trying to work with the fire department, trying to work with bylaw enforcement, mm-hmm. being asked, every time you see something, every time you see a truckload of garbage come in, please photograph it. That's only going to strengthen our case. Mm-hmm. But then the RCMP tells me, by me photographing, that I'm antagonizing. So what do? Well, my suggestion mm-hmm. would be for the RCMP and bylaw enforcement to collectively work as a group rather than work against each other. Because I'll tell you, and I know that you can't speak for the RCMP, and I've talked to Constable Breton about it, or Inspector Breton. Again, there's something's got to change, and I sincerely hope. I mean, I'm proud to live in Dieppe, very proud. I'm proud of my property. I'm proud of the work that I'm doing within the city, that I get an opportunity to go out and create beautiful gardens, which Dieppe is so proud of. But yet, I hope that everybody can learn from this situation, and before it gets to the point that it's at now, that my husband and I are considering on selling the home that we built together.
Mm-hmm. Well, we wouldn't want that to happen, and No,
but Yvonne, if you don't feel safe in your own home,
well,
which we don't, due to the volatility of this next door neighbor. And again, that's a whole other issue that we have to deal with the RCMP. My issue is not with the RCMP. I need to rely on these guys when I have to call them.
Well,
thank you so much, though, this evening.
Thank you for coming and here and giving us additional information that is obviously now shared with all members of council, and we will continue to monitor the situation. That's the extent to which we and encourage action on those that can take action, and see where we go from there. So
That's
again,
all we've asked for
Okay,
throughout this entire process.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
OK, alors on va passer.
So now we go to next item, item 9, adoption of minutes, moved by Councillor Cormier, seconded by Councillor Leblanc. Are there any questions on the minutes of the meeting held on the 11th of June last? No questions. So all those in favor of resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. It is carried as presented. Item 10, motions, memorandums, and nominations. Sorry. 10.1, culture, leisure, and community life. Monsieur Melançon. Mr. Mayor, members of council, the first file, you have it before you. Partnership agreement between the city of Dieppe and Circus Stella, which is the entity that works on the Festival Imaginaire. It states the responsibility of this entity for the organization, the financial commitment of the municipality, so we recommend the signing. And there is the responsibility of the agreement dated June 1st, 2018. So for the reading of the resolution, Monsieur Leblanc. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That council ratify the signature of the partnership agreement dated June 1st, 2018 between the city of Dieppe and Circus Stella. So moved, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Leblanc, seconded by Councillor Alain. On the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. Next item. 10.1.2, the item that was added tonight. Monsieur Melançon. So, as it was done publicly during the press conference, the federal and the provincial confirmed their contribution for the intergenerational community complex. So this here is for the agreement with the Government of Canada. We have a draft of the of the agreement, and it stipulates that we have to have a formal resolution signed, and it has to be annexed. So tonight it's for the signature of the agreement that confirms the contribution of $9.5 million for this intergenerational community complex. Thank you, Monsieur Melançon. For the reading of the resolution, Monsieur Thibodeau. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Council authorized the municipal signing officers to sign the contribution agreement between the City of Dieppe and the Government of Canada for the Dieppe Intergenerational Community Complex Project. So moved, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Alain. On the question. No questions. All those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Carried as presented. 10.2.2. Oh, so 10.2.1 was stricken. So now we go to 10.3.1. No, 10.2.2. Engineering Services, Fox Creek, Abueto Replacement and Dike Elevation Design Project in Fox Creek. So the City of Dieppe had a study of the floodplains in Dieppe, and the zone Fox Creek was identified as a priority to protect the assets that are on that territory. Also, last fall, we put in a request at the FCM under a program funding, $750,000 we got for the dike. So we are doing the engineering study to see the type of specific work and the costs for this project. Thereafter, we will be requesting more funding to obtain more partners for this improvement or enhancement. So Crandall Engineering Limited for an amount of $260,000 of HST. For the reading of the resolution, Monsieur Godet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The council authorized Crandall Engineering Limited to undertake the engineering services for the Fox Creek Abueto replacement and dike elevation design project, as well as the environmental impact study pursuant to the proposal dated May 15th, 2018, and further authorize that the estimated cost of $260,000 plus HST be defrayed from account number 3-3-35-58-7641, General Capital Budget, Dike, Fox Creek, Climate Change. So moved. Moved by Councillor Godet, seconded by Councillor Brideau on the question. On the question, Monsieur Alain. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Monsieur Melançon, so the dike, the Abueto, is where exactly? On our map, it's not really clear. That's number one. And number two, replacement of an Abueto. Have this been done in Dieppe? How long ago? Well, I'm going to have the engineering director. She will say better things than I will on that. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Mayor. So, Councillor Alain, the Abueto is at the Fox Creek. So when we're on the trail on the dike in that region, it's indicated in the memo in section 4, it's where the creek is. So the Abueto is there. Were there not two Abuetos, one on top of the other? Repairs had been made at one point. That's it. Yeah, okay. Replacement, how long would it take? Once it's done, to replace it once a summer, or? Yeah, generally that's what it would be, but like it's indicated in the memo, the work it would be only for 2020 because we have work to do to determine, first of all, get the Department of Environment permission, and then we have to do an environmental impact study and then make sure that things are going to work properly. So did we start? Have we already done a replacement of an Abueto in Dieppe? Yeah, we've done one on Virginia with a concrete system, which has been in place for more than 10 years, if I remember. Yeah, we've already replaced one. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So, are there any other questions? No other questions. So, all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Resolution is carried as presented. 10.3, appointments for the Greater Moncton International Airport Authority, Romeo Leblanc. For the reading of the resolution, Monsieur Cormier. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That Council appoint the following persons on the Greater Moncton International Airport Authority, Inc. Board of Directors. Jean Corriveau for a 2-year term, starting July 19th, 2018 to July 19th, 2020, and Luc Esliger for a 3-year term, starting July 19th, 2018 to July 19th, 2021. So moved. Moved by Councillor Cormier, seconded by Councillor Alain on the question. No questions, so all those in favor of the resolution signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Resolution is carried as presented. Next item, 10.3.2. Appointments. Monsieur Leblanc. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Council appoint Alain Parent on the 3+ Economic Development Corporation Board of Directors for a term ending June 11th, 2020. So moved, Mr. Mayor. Moved by Councillor Leblanc, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. All those in favor of the resolution? Questions? No questions. So all those in favor of the resolution, signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Resolution is carried as presented. And that puts an end to the agenda. So we go to inquiries and announcements by members of council. We're starting on my left tonight, Monsieur Alain. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Monsieur Melançon, I have a question for Madame Spencer. May I talk to Madame Spencer? Madame Spencer, On the chemin on Melançon, I got a call. People were starting to do work on the trail, starting the work. There was a little bit of a surprise by residents. We received some calls. So concerning the trail, some people are concerned on the size of the trail, between Moulin and Fox Creek. Is it the first time that we are building a trail in an older neighbor, which is not a new one, as we would say? I don't have the details with me. Obviously, we follow their norms. It's 3 meters wide. In this case, also, we're adding a grass border between the trail. It's a 1.5 meter. We want a separation between the vehicles and the trail, especially concerning all the students that are going to be following the trail. So all told, it's 4.5 meters that would be behind the sidewalk. It's just that it's a concern. You have the trail, you have the grass that's is maybe on the people's lots. It's infringing on the people's lots. So it's something that I would be suggesting. I think we're going to be receiving emails. Councillor Blanc just mentioned it. I believe that we're going to get more and more. So I think that I would really like you to give us some information on the file. There are going to be some questions for sure from some of the residents. I'm still convinced that having spent the monies in that neighborhood, it's good. It's a school zone, it's important. So the 2 new schools, Le Marais and Anthony Maillet, so we're proud that there are 2 great names for the city of Dieppe, but we need to find a balance between the residents and the new infrastructure, which is infringing on their property. I mean, we see it already with Mr. McBurney. When we infringe on an individual, his rights, there are always consequences. So I believe we have to be open and we have to find a solution, and we will find the solution. If I may, as I explained to one of the residents to whom I talked today, it's still property of the municipality. I know people are using it as their parking, but we don't have to purchase land. The work is being done on land from the municipality. If I may, we had public meetings on this subject, the petition that we had received. I mean, you were present, Monsieur Leblanc was there too. So it was very clear on our part, we were very clear that this project, when it was brought forth to council, there would be multifunctional trail, and it was on Fox Creek Road. There was a trail going to the schools, and that also we were getting ready to build on Melançon and Boulevard Dieppe. So I imagine that when they saw the pikes and what we see on the pictures, it's okay, we see the reality, but it's just something that was planned on that street. I understand. I'll be the first one to defend this project, but still, when we see the pictures, we see the posts, I mean, we have to be open. We're here to make sure that we're properly communicating with the citizens. We have to be conscious of this. Yes, it's an important element, and Madam Spencer mentioned it. We had the space. We have to need space between the roadway and the trail. So that 1.5 meters is very important. A lot of children were talked about the use of the trail. So if we reduce that width, the children will be closer to cars. So we have to see what kind of risk we accept and how to modify things. So these are concerns that we have to take into consideration. Okay, thank you. That's it. That was 4 minutes. Thank you, Monsieur Thibodeau. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's the time of year when diplomas are given out. So I would like to congratulate all the graduates of the community college in Mathieu Martin. And I also must say that I represented the municipality at the ceremony of the community college of Dieppe. There were 29 Dieppois of 320 graduates. And I also noticed that there were 51 graduates from abroad. So I want to congratulate all these people, but I also want to encourage these foreign graduates to remain in Dieppe to increase our population. Thank you. Thank you, Monsieur Thibodeau. Madame Le Boutillier. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would also like to congratulate all the new graduates. I participated in the graduation ceremony yesterday. And I wish all these people, 225 graduates from Dieppe, to the best of futures. And I'd also like to mention if we're looking at a way of seeing our Acadian spirit, maybe to see something visual, at least for the month of August, maybe little flags, like we see in other municipalities for Acadian pride. Okay, these could be reasonable expenses. It's something that we should promote, this pride. So that's it. So soon on the lampposts and on the posts, we'll be seeing things. Spring was a little longer, and we're going to be summer, I guess, is here. Are you sure about that? Yes, I think so. Monsieur Brideau. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And since we talked about pride, I would like to, first of all, congratulate Québécois and Québécoises who live in Dieppe. Congratulate them for the Saint-Jean-Baptiste. I was listening to comments on Radio-Canada, and we talk about pride a little bit like Acadians on the 15th of August. We like to raise our flag, so that's what I wanted. I wanted to mention the Saint-Jean-Baptiste yesterday on the 24th, everywhere in Quebec and everywhere in Canada where Québécois live, or Francophones. That's all I had to say tonight. Thank you. Monsieur Cormier, good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A second time, I would like to wish a great holiday, vacation to teachers and students, and I'd like to ask everybody to be safe. And since we're not going to have another meeting before the beginnings of the Mercredi Chaud, I would like to invite all our citizens to go to Mercredi Chaud, which will be starting on the 4th of July. Thank you, Mr. Cormier. Monsieur Leblanc. Mr. Mayor, I have nothing to add to what has been said already. Thank you. Monsieur Godet, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity last week to be president of the annual meeting of the Coalition for Seniors' Rights in Homes. It was their annual meeting, and at the same time as their... so they talked at the same time about their next steps in the 3 or 4 months to come on their priorities, the coalition's priority. The 4 items that they raised were, first of all, the increase of home care, which is less expensive than in hospitals or homes. Also, they want to promote the return of extramural, which is now in private hands. They wanted to come back to public hands. The third item was to increase the hours of support for seniors in homes. Right now, I think it's 3.5 hours an average per senior. There was a reduction of over the last couple of years, and they want to increase it to a level that would be more accessible. In other words, 4 hours per senior. And finally, they want things to continue on the protection of their belongings when they move. Those are the 4 points that they are going to be working on in the next couple of months. And eventually, I believe that I wouldn't be surprised if the municipality were asked for support. So it's something that I wanted to mention. I think it was a good meeting. It was well attended. The politicians of all colors were here to listen to what they had to say. So we should expect more news in the future. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Godette. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Monsieur Francis Paradis, who is leaving his position at Maison du Québec and at Atlantique just after 2 short years among us. Where he had a pretty significant impact on economic development, different events that they supported in our region. He spent a short amount of time. Usually they stay longer, but I believe that he was called back to Quebec for a higher position. So as we say, sometimes we lose them because sometimes they're good persons and they're called to other services. I thanked him publicly during the evening of the Acadie Québec Award, during which we recognized the Fry Festival for the Greater Moncton for their involvement in everything that concerns the art of writing, but also concerning reading in French, just as they do it in English. We know that in our schools there's a great participation. And on Quebec's side, we recognize the junior hockey league, major hockey league. We know that we have a couple of teams here, one of which is Titan from Bathurst that was celebrated highly over the last couple of months. So, Monsieur Paradis, well, best wishes. Thank you for your support, and we hope that the person who is going to be replacing you, we're told, the rumor is that it is a lady who will be the first one to come here in Acadie. So we all know the changes that are happening, and we're waiting with bated breath for the announcement of this new person in Acadie. So, that being said, good evening to all. Thank you for your active participation.